special week coming for you with not one, not two, but three different Agents of Fandom episodes coming to your podcast feeds this week. We're going to be talking some Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to be talking some Obi-Wan Kenobi again. And then we're going to be diving into the series premiere of Ms. Marvel. But before all that, I am joined by my co-host, as always. Garrett, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. And I just want to say, I miss you. Or I miss
you too, man.
And I'm glad to have you back. Yeah, glad to have you back.
It feels good. I was at one of my best friends, Zach's, his bachelor party. And so we were out to the lake for 5 days. It was incredibly fun, but it was also, it was a long period of time to be.
It was 5 days in the sun on a boat.
Exactly. And so, yeah, we had a lot of fun, but I'm happy to be home, happy to be back with Sonic, Obi-Wan, and Shadow, and getting some comfy time in my bed. And you, exactly. And all of the Agents of Fandom. I'm very happy to be back and talking about some Star Wars and some Marvel content. And today's episode, we have a fun one because it's a bit of a dual episode. We have our man Damon Gray with us. He's going to be talking some Ms. Marvel comics that either you might want to read before the show or that might enhance your viewing experience throughout the show or just get to know the character a little bit better. And we also have Liam Crowley from thedirect.com joining us to talk some Obi-Wan Kenobi. But that's not till later. Liam's not here yet. We have our guest of honor here right now to talk some Ms. Marvel, my man Damon. Damon, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk about a very fun, very wholesome, very charming, just a great character in Kamala Khan.
I agree with all those words, and I can't wait for the second ever Agents of Fandom Comic Corner. And you're our comic expert, so we're thrilled to have you back on.
I'm excited to do this. This is a really fun one. Kamala Khan, I mean, I like newer comics. I think they connect with me a little bit more personally than a very wordy old book from, let's say, the 50s or the 60s. And this is a character that was created less than 10 years ago. So yeah, that's pretty new.
She's new. She's fun. And yeah, I've seen the first 2 episodes already. And I guess as this will be coming out, this is coming out a Tuesday morning. So embargo is going to be out already. So technically I could give you a little review, but we're going to have 2 coming throughout the day to agentsoffandom.com. One from myself, one from our man Isaac Joel. And they will, of course, be spoiler free. But we can't wait to talk to you guys about these because they're a very, very fun first 2 episodes. And it's going to be a good one to talk comics before on because it's a very comic booky show. And I'm excited to be able to talk about that.
And I love comic booky stuff. That's some of the best content is when you have comic books kind of come to life. That's why everyone loves Into the Spider-Verse. It really feels like, a literal story, a literal book that just comes out onto your screen. And just hearing you say that makes me very excited because the original run, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, is some of the most wholesome. I'm going to say the same words. I'm sorry. But it's true. It's some of the most wholesome, good storytelling within the last 10 years, easily. G. Willow Wilson, who is the writer on the book, just absolutely knocked it out of the park. Kamala Khan is such a great character. I think so many people are going to fall in love with her and be introduced to her because of the show and hopefully read some of these books.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You go, Garrett. Sorry about that.
No. I was just going to say I didn't have the luxury of seeing the episodes, but I have been kind of keeping tabs on the reactions online. And if you've been listening, you knew that I was already stoked about this show, but nothing that I've read has dampened those. In fact, they've only enhanced my feelings. And my kind of only foray into Ms. Marvel is with the Avengers game.
I liked the Avengers game.
We're not going to talk about that right now because that's going to be a whole nother argument for another day. However,
you want to know all I'm going to say is we're probably going to have to talk about it.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to talk about it. And that's cool because if there's one saving grace of that video game, it's Kamala Khan and her story and how that was handled. And that was very exciting for me. Why I didn't like the game, that's a whole nother long, it's, a buggy issue, but there's a lot of stuff behind that. We don't need to get to talk to that, but
the initial story was fantastic.
Story, great. That's not where my issues lie. but yeah, that was my first foray into Miss Marvel, and so I was really counting on the show to enhance that. And from everything I've read from my colleagues and my peers who've seen it, I am so stoked. And Damon, I can't wait to get some more knowledge here from you today.
Then let's get going.
Let's do
and
it.
It's exciting too, because Damon, I'm happy you mentioned Into the Spider-Verse as well, because if you look at the Ms. Marvel tab on Disney Plus, like it says it's a coming of age story. And so when I saw that from Marvel, the first thing I thought of was Spider-Man Homecoming, and basically Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man's entire journey. And we pick up Kamala Khan as a teenager. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. But the way the story is told throughout Into the Spider-Verse, I actually had a couple thoughts that like connected from that movie into the show as well when I was watching, that I thought were really cool. And so Spider-Man's been one of my favorite characters my entire life, and not one of my all-time favorite character in any pop culture, fiction, not like anything. So I'm excited for more Kamala Khan, because I feel like her and Peter Parker have a few personality traits that are kind of similar. And you know what? Without further ado, let's bring it to the experts who has read the comics top to bottom. Damon, give it to us.
I mean, you said it right there. Kamala Khan, I'd argue, and a lot of people do, is the modern day Peter Parker. She's funny. She's really funny. Very quippy, references pop culture like crazy in the books. Great quips and jokes. And it is a coming of age, and it's very much, especially at the beginning of the story, where you're trying to hide that superhero life from your personal life, and you have that separation of why do you care about the character, why do you care about the heroes, because you care about the person. And the books do that so well. And I think we do have to talk about it, because this is the biggest talking point going to the show, is that power change, right? She is an Inhuman in the comics as well, and I'd be very surprised if the show goes that route. I don't think they're going that route at all. So how would you make that character and be like, oh, can this still be the same character? And to me, yes, absolutely, because Kamala Khan is so much more than, and a lot of people call it stretchy powers. It's way more than just stretchy powers. She has a healing factor. She can, embiggen is her kind of catchphrase, is to get big or to get small, right? She does have the stretchy power stuff that you can correlate to Mr. Fantastic time to time, but she can also change form physically. And that is a part of her origin story, is when she goes out, she defies her parents. So she is a young Pakistani American girl living in Jersey City, right? And she wants to go out to a party. And she disobeys her parents and sneaks out at night and goes to this party. Now, unfortunately, because this is the Marvel Universe, something bad is going to happen. And a Terrigen bomb kind of went off elsewhere. And because she is an Inhuman, she goes into the cocoon, comes back out, things get a little wonky, and she comes out as Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel, in the original one-piece costume, right? The bathing suit costume. And she comes out as that, white skin, blonde hair. And freaks out, obviously, goes back home, relaxes, things go back to normal, etc. She does also save the bully in that same, I want to say it's the first issue. It's not the first issue, it's the first arc. She saves her bully at school, who makes fun of her when she went to that party. And when she saves her, she is as the white-skinned, blonde-haired Carol Danvers. That is her first time doing it. It's why she got the name Miss Marvel, because she was Miss Marvel, right? And people made some comments to her about being an attractive 20-something-year-old woman looking like that, right? And goes back to her normal self, being like, I never want to do that again. That's not who I am. Yeah. And that is a big part. So all in this round, right? A big part to her story is trying to be somebody who she isn't. And in the books, it is very much that physical form of Carol Danvers, who is her idol, right? In the show, it's going to be different. And I think it's going to be very much of she's dressing up as Carol, trying to personify someone she's not. She really has to accept who she really is. And that story, for me at least, you can correlate and tell it well and still get the same end result. I do understand the people who say it's not the same, because it's very difficult to show that and to tell that in that live action setting. And the same thing goes with the powers. We know that her power is going to be different. It's going to be more of a cosmic power, but you still get kind of like the Green Lantern-esque flow. You can still have her same type of feel, right? Without the embiggening factor. I do think there's a lot of embiggening stuff in the book that they won't be able to do. She shrinks and gets bigger all the time. That's like a big thing with her. She shrinks and gets bigger a lot, and I doubt we're getting that, right?
I'm not sure, and obviously I won't say much because I've seen it, but all I can think of is, now Damon, you've seen The Boys season 3, first 3 episodes already, correct?
I'm very scared where you're going with this.
I just hear shrinking and getting bigger, and that's all I can think of is those first 3 episodes.
No, we need to not relate these. No, we need to not relate these two things.
I'm very glad we're going from
that show is too fresh in my mind.
I don't want to. That is all I could segue out.
As soon as you said that,
I am so glad we're going from a very crazy image show that The Boys provides to something like this in the midweek. So I have like something to be like, yeah, life is good. Because The Boys is like a really dark place, man, and you just kind of hinted at it. And if I assume a lot of people who are listening probably watch the show and they know exactly the reference point. Regardless, we will not be getting any of that in this show because it's too good. It's too wholesome.
And so, like, what I do want to say about it too is just like, I've always, like, Garrett and I have been on the camp forever, is why don't we just wait and see until it comes out and then we'll judge it, as opposed to freaking out about this power change and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I obviously don't know how it goes from episodes 3 and beyond, but it does seem like I'm proud of the writers, and I like how they're going with it. And I think they are doing a beautiful, beautiful job of telling who Kamala Khan is so far. But if we want to know more about who Kamala Khan is, what should we be reading? What issues, what arcs?
The original run, 2014, G. Willow Wilson, the original 19 books from her. That, I mean, it's just perfect. It's the perfect origin story. It's so well written. You'll laugh, you'll feel bad, you'll see some great character arcs and fun. It ends with kind of a surprise because it goes right into a big event that everyone keeps talking about, which is Secret Wars. That's how that run ends.
I know you want to talk about that.
I will get to that. We'll get to that because there's
can't wait for 3 years from now when we can talk Secret Wars with you.
Yeah. Well, there's Secret Wars that I kind of want to like throw out there because everyone keeps hyping this up. This is the next big thing, the big multiversal story. And we'll talk about that in a little bit because it's not, Secret Wars is not what everyone thinks it is. It is not like, it's not the massive multiversal story just everyone thinks it is. And we'll talk about that later. But if you want, if you can read Secret Wars in between that first run and the second run, you won't learn anything new during Secret Wars because it is not about her in the slightest. Completely different stuff. And it literally, the second run from 2015 picks right back up where she was, kind of like, oh, things happened. We thought the world was going to end and it didn't. And it picks right back up. And that's where you meet a character that is going to be in this show that I'm aware of, which is Red Dagger. He shows up in one issue 12 in that 2015 run, kind of as the hero of Pakistan. And then eventually shows back up later in the run towards the end as a potential love interest of Kamala Khan and a good friend.
Very interesting, very fun stuff.
But she has a great supporting cast. Bruno, who's her best friend, is so important to the stories and is a great, great, great supporting character. Nikita is also a great supporting character as well, that kind of represents more of their family traditional values. And in that second run, she even gets even more people around her, and some twists and turns with some characters that you may not expect, who I really, really like their stories that they tell in that second run. I'd almost argue that the second run is better, just because there's more, like there's 30 something issues in that second run, so you can tell more stories. There's like maybe one arc I didn't love in this entire thing. In the first run, there's one book I didn't like, and it's because it's a filler book and it involves Loki, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere. In the second run, there's like an arc I didn't like, and that's about it.
Can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, that's a pretty high shooting percentage. And I gotta say, like, this isn't based on what I've seen. This is just gut feeling. Now, for you, Hawkeye is your favorite Disney Plus show because of Kate Bishop, correct?
Maybe, yes.
For those watching on YouTube, hit that like button while you're watching, if you are. He's got a Kate Bishop poster behind him, all kinds of comics and Funkos. Kate Bishop is his #1 Marvel character. I gotta say, just a gut feeling, I think this show could rival Hawkeye for you. I think it's, and I don't want to set your expectations high. Like, just know that this is me spewing from just a feeling and not like actual evidence. I think it could push up there for maybe your #1. And I'm happy that you brought up Secret Wars as well, because obviously that happens between the first 2 books for Kamala Khan and Ms. Marvel. But we also just put up a new Secret Wars theory article on agentsoffandom.com. One of the brand new Agents of Fandom, Carlos, put up his very first article on the website, and it's amazing. It's an amazing theory article on Secret Wars, so make sure you go check that out. And one of the new runs with Ms. Marvel that's coming out now is the Beyond the Limit run. I'm curious, have you read that one at all yet?
I've read a few issues just because they're on Marvel Unlimited. I've read a few, and I know that they've kind of delved deeper into what her power set is and how it works, and it involves my understanding of it involves kind of like her other selves and other multiverses, and kind of like a handing and exchanging of power, which is fine. Inhumans are weird, comic books are weird, as long as like if I can see where you're going with this. I do not see them changing her power set in the books to correlate with the MCU. I see it the other way around. I can see in the MCU what could theoretically happen is however she gets her powers, where it seems like it's through the bracelets essentially, that she would absorb that power, kind of like how Carol did. Yeah. And that's how she would get her power and be more of like a permanent physical embodiment of it. I could see that being more likely than Green Lantern type of powers in the books.
So we know that the powers are cosmic and not, well, we're assuming they're not Inhuman related, then they're cosmic. That's the word that we have been given throughout the promotion. And we know that the rings from Shang-Chi are like giving off some beacon in the galaxy somewhere. Mm-hmm. Do we think that there could be any correlation between these? It's a question for everyone here. This is just something that I was formulating in my head while you guys were talking, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts.
From my guessing of things where they're going with Shang-Chi, I don't think it'd be completely cosmic. I think it's more, so there's a difference. I'd say it's more mystical than cosmic. Okay. Which is why he aligned with Wong, with Doctor Strange, because that's the mystical realm. Mm-hmm. You can really easily take that entire direction into the mystical realm. Oh my goodness, I completely blanked. Because I do think they were rings, and there are rings of a dragon.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my best guess too. Is like that's my favorite theory. Is that they're Fin Fang Foom's rings, and that was the beacon to him. That was kind of that's my favorite theory on that one. And in terms of her powers, like obviously I don't want to say a lot, and I don't even really know a lot. I think that's why they give the first 2 episodes, is we've seen the first 2 episodes of every Disney Plus series so far. Like that's not where the big reveals are happening.
Right.
And so there's not a lot to even to spoil anyways. But I know we have some viewers, and I feel like Damon's really one of those included, where you want to know as little as possible going in. And so I like to keep that up. But I do think this power change as well could potentially lead to her being a bit more powerful than she is in comics. Like if she's going to be in there getting stories with Monica and Carol out in space, she's probably going to have to be stronger than she is in the comics. So I do think that could potentially be a route they're going with that. And
she is definitely an outlier in the whole Marvels group, Spectrum, Photon. She's a cosmic wielding individual. Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, cosmic wielding individual, and then you throw Kamala Khan in there.
And I think
she
exactly
got the quote unquote the stretchy power. So this definitely aligns with her more. I do think with the MCU, and what's interesting, and I'm a little bit more, I don't want to say hesitant, but I'm more aware of this now because I'm just looking out for it. There's a bit of a power creep going on with the MCU with certain characters. Shang-Chi in the books up until recently, never that strong, never that powerful. And now you gave him pretty much immortality rings. Kamala Khan never really had that cosmic aspect to her. She was an Inhuman, so she is a superpowered individual, but not to potentially this level, right? But the good thing, the interesting thing is that because of artifacts, it can be taken away, right? So it's not like you're constantly creeping up. You can creep up and then take it away pretty quickly.
Right.
And I do think we keep going back to Shang-Chi here, but I do think with that one specifically, him learning his mother's talents as well, I do think that plays into more potential chance in the future that the rings aren't going to be part of his long-term story arc. I definitely think that is a chance. Damon, thank you so much for joining us today, my man. The Agents of Fandom comic book corner continues, and you crushed it as always.
Thank you.
And we, of course, are going to have Liam Crowley joining us shortly here to talk some Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it's Monday as we're recording this. You're going to be hearing this on Tuesday. And it's going to be Wednesday, and Ms. Marvel is coming out. So it's going to be very exciting times. Make sure you check out some comics. Head to your local comic book shop to do that. And we're excited for this show. I told you we're going to have lots of episodes this week, so I figured I might as well kind of elaborate for our viewers here some programming reminders. We're talking Ms. Marvel with Damon right now, obviously, and we got Obi-Wan episode 3 coming up Wednesday. We're going to have a live show on Twitch. In the evening, we'll tweet out on all of our socials, Agents of Fandom, at Agents Fandom on Twitter, the specific time. But in the evening, we will be live on Twitch with Jamie Jirac from comicbook.com talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then Thursday morning, we're going to be live with our boy Mo from Streamer talking some Ms. Marvel as well. Damon, thank you again. Any last words for the people before we let you get out of here?
Just read G. Willow Wilson's run, both of them, the 2014 and the 2015 one. 2014 is the origin. 2015 is the continuation. She was in the Champions. She's a big part of another story with the younger teams with Outlawed, where they kind of ban younger heroes up to a certain age. That's another interesting story. I could see them definitely doing down the line. And if you really, really, because I know we're going to the Marvels later on, want to know the relationship between Carol and Kamala, Captain Marvel number 30 from Kelly Thompson, go to the end. There's a little special, and it really shows what Carol Danvers truly means to Kamala, and it's so well written for just a few pages.
Well, I love that. Can't wait to read that.
Captain Marvel number 30. I just put it in the Zoom chat as we speak, because I don't want to forget about it. All right. Well, thank you, sir. We will, I'm sure, be talking to you very soon, because Thor Love and Thunder is not very far away. So we're going to be talking some Thor comics with Damon pretty soon as well. And that'll do it for our Ms. Marvel talk. And we got Liam joining us here to talk Obi-Wan. Welcome back to the Agents of Fandom podcast. We are here with a very special guest. We have Liam Crowley from thedirect.com. How's it going, Liam?
Absolutely amazing, TJ and Garrett. Thank you guys so much for having me. Always a pleasure to hop on Agents of Fandom. This is a fun time.
It's good to have you back, man. Feels like it's been a long time.
It's been a minute.
And yeah, we're incredibly happy to have you back. We're gonna have to do another one. We've been kind of cold on our drafts lately. It's been we've been so filled with content. We haven't put one out in a while. So when we got some downtime in the industry, we're gonna have you and Matt back on for some competitiveness, for some fire. But for today, it's all friendship, talking some Obi-Wan. And before we even get to that, I know you've seen the first 2 episodes of Ms. Marvel as well. What'd you think of it? Did you like it?
I was a big fan, surprisingly so. And that's no slight on the character of Kamala Khan, but I was just expecting a lot less than what we actually got. And that's just because it felt smaller scale in the advertisements. I felt like it was going to be similar to Moon Knight in the sense of being very disconnected. And boy, is it not. It feels very Spider-Man Homecoming in the best ways possible. A lot of great coming of age vibes, and the style, the way they shoot this. I feel like everyone's been saying that and dancing around the specifics because it's hard to talk about how awesome the style is without spoiling what the style is. But you'll know it when you see it, and it's so heartwarming. Iman Viani is born to play this role. That's not a superlative I give out very often, but it's clear from her charm and charisma. This character is an extension of who she is in real life. All of her Avengers fandom feels authentic, and that's something that you can't teach. So I'm invested in this show. It's no, game changer. It's not going to probably crack my top 10 for MCU rankings, but it's a nice, lighthearted twist away from the dark and brooding side of Obi-Wan that's airing simultaneously and coming off of Moon Knight too. So I think this is the perfect coming of age Marvel show to place right in the heart of summer. I'm enjoying it so far, and the cliffhanger at the end of episode 2 left me wanting more immediately.
Me myself as well. This was one, like, we got the screeners out and I watched it. I was at a bachelor party for my one of my close friends this weekend. He's going to be my best man at my wedding, and he's getting married this summer too. And it was like 11 p.m. I think it was probably after midnight, maybe 1. Everybody was still out by the fire, and I turned in for the night, went into my room, and I watched some Ms. Marvel. And that was how I capped off each of my evening, was 1 episode one night, 1 episode the other. And yeah,
guys, I gotta get out of here real quick. And they're like, oh, okay, buddy, good night. And TJ's in his room, like under the blanket.
yeah. That's like,
that is so
pretty close. Like, and it worked out because I wasn't the first one to turn in. We went for 5 nights in a row, so everybody like knew you had to pace yourselves, right? And so yeah, I bowed out the one night, and that's how I capped off my night. It was a little Ms. Marvel alone in my room. It was a good come down. But yeah, I agree with you. I can't wait for this show. But that's not even the show we're here to talk about today. I'm happy you brought up the kind of contrast to Obi-Wan, because I agree with you completely. What have you thought of the first 2 episodes leading into this one, and then how did 3 stack up for you in comparison to the other 2?
So my viewing experience for the first 2 episodes probably lessened my excitement around it because I watched them while I was in the middle of a delayed flight in an airport terminal on my phone with AirPods for my audio. So it wasn't exactly the cinematic experience that I was hoping for. Episode 3 was the complete opposite. Got that on the surround sound, the big TV, etc. But I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I liked that this felt true to Obi-Wan's character. I feel like Star Wars often gets into the corner of doing the fan service aspects, and it would have been so easy to dive right into Obi-Wan, the guy we remember from episode 3, still wielding that lightsaber. And they decided, no, we're going to build to that. We're going to have him regain his mojo rather than start with him right at the top, guns blazing. So I appreciated that little twist on his character starting out this series. I love young Leia. The chase scene through the forest makes me so angry because it suspends my disbelief. But other than that, because I don't want one bad thing to ruin a character, I think she's charming. I think she's charismatic. Surprisingly, the female lead of this show, which I don't think anyone was expecting. And speaking of, young actors who are born to play roles, I don't know if I would put that superlative on here, but she holds her own against Ewan McGregor and all the other stars in the show. So I appreciated that. And then that ending of episode 2 with Vader in the back to tank, all menacing and his scars and everything. This dude's a horror movie villain. People forget how scary Darth Vader can be. And I've enjoyed it so far. It's far from my favorite Disney Plus series so far, but it could crack a top 3 by the time it all wraps up.
Yeah, I'm with you there in terms of I love it. I think the first 3 have been my favorite opening to a Star Wars series so far, and we definitely get to see more of that horror movie Vader in this 3rd episode. We get to see his darkness. Garrett, I know you're way more hyped up about this 3rd episode than the 2nd one. Tell me why.
Yeah, I didn't hate the first 2 episodes. I didn't love the first 2 episodes. I was just like, all right, I'm here for the ride, I guess. And we've talked extensively about it, TJ. If anyone wants to hear, go back and listen to our last Obi-Wan episode. But the 3rd episode, I was like so here for. I was hooked. I enjoyed the conversations between Leia and Obi-Wan. I loved the mole. I loved that the flag in the back was like painted on, and you could very much tell it was painted on. I was like, oh, this guy is not good. Had one of my favorite stormtrooper deaths in a Star Wars project ever, and that's the dude getting cut in half by the laser fence. So awesome. And then there's so much to say about the Vader stuff. Like, it was just so awesome. I was like so anxious throughout the whole episode, and I think they achieved that very well. And man, the Vader stuff was brutal. I just want to talk about it. But TJ, tell us your thoughts on the episode real quick.
And so I think one thing that you brought up the painted on thing on the back of the caravan there. And one thing that I thought was hilarious is I saw a meme photoshopped on where somebody put a "Make America Great Again" thing on there instead of the, and I thought that was absolutely hilarious. But I love the episode. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And to me, actually, some of the parts that enhanced it for me even was some of the things I read around the episode. And that was actually one of the benefits that we're talking about this multiple days after it came out, as opposed to an immediate reaction like we usually do. Is I can't remember which one of the writers or directors, producers it was, but I remember they asked a question about the Grand Inquisitor and Rebels, and his only response was, canon is law, or her only response right there, I can't remember who it was. Their only response was, our canon is law. We know that. We won't break it. And that was kind of the end of it. And so I apologize. I can't remember the outlet or the person that came from, but that made me feel good. The other one was the other one was, I feel this episode really showed us in the moment where Leia and Obi-Wan are talking. And this will be another thing we'll dive into. Actually, I'm going to dive into it now because we might as well just go to Vader after. But what I loved about Ewan McGregor's performance, and I really saw it in this episode more than the other 2, is he has not lost faith in the Force. He has lost faith in himself. And you see that when he's explaining the Force to Leia. Leia asks him, what's it like to turn it on? And he says, when you're afraid of the dark and you turn on a light, it's like that. And I got just shivers down my entire body when I heard that. I'm loving the connection between the 2 of them. Garrett, I know you had some potential continuity worries about the 2 of them after the first 2 episodes. Was the action and the chemistry in the 3rd episode, was that enough to kind of remove that from your mind?
Yeah, I mean, like I said last time, I'm waiting until the very end to like fully think about it. But my mind was not on that at all this episode. I mean, my mind was on Quinlan Vos. My mind was on, I started having some theories. Jade and I discussed the theory, posted on TikTok. It's our biggest TikTok video ever, so that's exciting. Quinlan Vos. I think that I might as well just go ahead and say it because it's on TikTok. But I think we know Quinlan Vos is alive now, still helping Jedi seek freedom or asylum or whatever. So this means he survived Order 66. There's not many Jedi, like experienced Jedi, who could have saved Grogu from the temple. Maybe it was him. Who knows? I think that's
love it.
I was like, this is a name drop that I was like possibly never expecting to hear in Star Wars again. And then it just happened randomly out of nowhere, and I was like, not even fully like maybe paying attention at the time, and I had to rewind and be like, wait, did he just say Quinlan? So yeah, if you guys don't know who Quinlan Vos is, go watch the Clone Wars. That's all I have to say.
There it is. Liam, is that something that's been in your head as well when you've been watching this, is like worrying about if the continuity is going to be matching up, or have you just been excited about this new story?
Well, I'll be honest, the continuity does mean a lot to me because that's why I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe so much. It's because everything feels connected and everything feels like it's abiding by rules. And when there are mistakes in continuity, they do their best to mop it up. Star Wars is a little bit more complex because it's not like they were just riding on movies before this, like Marvel was when they eventually branched into streaming. You're mixing in video games, you're mixing in books, you're mixing in animated shows. There's a lot of variables that they have to control. And even though I'm not, as diehard of a fan of the animated shows as other people, I see how riled up people get about seeing some of those animated characters get name dropped in these shows, seeing some of them translate from animation into live action. And I want that to be protected. So the whole thing with the Grand Inquisitor right now does rub me the wrong way, but I've read some stuff about, his race has two stomachs, so I'm sure he'll somehow come back into the fold, if not in this show, in a later show down the line. But yeah, I really wish I had the connection to like a Quinlan Voss that Garrett had there, because I heard the name drop and I'm like, I know that means something, but it doesn't evoke any emotion out of me. While in Moon Knight, they say Madripoor, and I jump out of my bed and I'm like, I am wide awake now. I was watching this episode half asleep, no need for coffee. They said Madripoor. I wish I had that connection to Star Wars. I'm still working on it. I'm still building up my fandom. And don't get me wrong, I'm a diehard fan of the movies and the live action shows, but the animated side is still something I'm working on. But again, like I said, I like to watch these shows with the fan base in mind and the fact that it's satisfying the whole fan base and not necessarily appeasing to the casual fans and more tailored towards the diehard fans. I think that's a really good thing for Star Wars. It's a very polarizing fandom community. And if anything, it doesn't take me out of the show. It makes me feel like, damn, I wish I did my homework. And that's the best feeling ever. Like, that's Filoni and Favreau working their magic.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
And it's so cool how we get to see all these different connections to various characters, whether it be through games, through the animation, etc. And then they can give us a brand new character like the third sister in Reva. Moses Ingram just comes in and absolutely is crushing the role. I had a theory about her last week, in terms of, I thought maybe the reason she knew Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader, which not very many people know, was that potentially she could be working for Darth Maul and Kira in Crimson Dawn, and that could be her Obi-Wan. That could be why she was so what's the word I'm looking for, tunnel visioned on Obi-Wan Kenobi. The third episode made me kind of think maybe that's not the case. However, you never know. I never want to completely close the book on a theory. The new one I kind of had, though, was that I'm wondering if maybe Reva is trying to kill Vader. I think that could be something that they could be potentially going with us, is that she could have been one of the younglings. She's upset at Obi-Wan because he abandoned them. She's upset at Anakin because he killed her friends. And she could be trying to work her way up the ranks to get in Darth Vader's good graces so she can take him down herself in a very Sith Lord, there can only be two type situation. Liam, I want to know, what do you think of those two theories, and then what do you think of the character of Reva so far?
I will say, TJ, I love the theory, but it's a prequel show, and like the idea of her wanting to kill Vader, it would take me out of the show, because I know Vader survives. I know Vader survives for another 10, 20 years. The same thing with her going after Kenobi. I know Kenobi survives this, and he doesn't have any like facial scarring or bodily scarring. He's not going to lose any limbs in this show. So I think that they have to take the approach in this series that they did with Captain America Civil War, where no one died, but Rhodey got paralyzed, and that really messed with Iron Man's mind. You can have the third sister hunt down Kenobi and want to torture him the same way Vader wanted to torture him in this episode, and still feel like there's stakes there, because when Kenobi is being blasted with the fire and everything, it made me terrified. Not because I thought he was going to die, but because Vader is trying to inflict the same emotional and physical pain on his former brother that his brother once did to him in Revenge of the Sith. So I think when you lean into that aspect, it's a lot easier to get bought in. As for the third sister specifically, I cannot stand the hate that is being spewed upon Moses Ingram or just, the character being involved in the show, because that's what leads to toxic fandom. That's a very poor reflection on this fandom community that we're all very proudly a part of. And I really wish it wasn't as vocal and loud as it is, because it really is a small, tiny, minute minority of this general fandom. That being said, I don't really care for the character with how she's been portrayed in the show so far. I think Moses Ingram is doing the most with the performance. I think the performance is good, but the character for me is a little wishy-washy. And maybe that's because she's standing opposite the Grand Inquisitor in the first 2 episodes, a character that we know, a character that is menacing, a character that has such a distinct Star Wars look. And now that the Grand Inquisitor, for the time being, is out of the picture, maybe it's going to open me up to be more willing to embrace her as a character. But at the same time, I'm like, if I don't care for the character, if I even have like feelings of hate, she's doing her job. She's a bad guy. Like, she's an Inquisitor after all. So maybe my mind is tricking me into actually realizing she's playing a really good bad guy. But I think a key thing for her is going to be understanding her backstory. I think that could be where a switch flips for a lot of people, because she has a connection to Anakin and Obi-Wan that we don't know right now. And the obvious answer is her being a part of Order 66 as a youngling and her escaping. That could be an answer. I hope they take it in a different direction, just because I feel like that's a little predictable. That's a little Sharon Carter power brokery for me. But at the same time, predictable is not always bad. And I think if you execute that predicted outcome in the right way, I think it could win over a lot of people, and it could make this character one that people want to see going forward. So where she goes, she's one of the ones, even though I don't really care for the character, I'm most intrigued, because they're going to hook us some way. They're not just putting a bunch of stake on this character for no reason. There's going to be a payoff. What that payoff is, still yet to be seen.
And while we're still on the theory train a little bit before we get to Vader, you brought out, there's just a single word you mentioned in your explanation there that reminded me of a small but potentially pretty crazy part of the episode. Obi-Wan Kenobi had a brother?
Yeah. I don't think that's
a throwaway line, or is that something?
No, I think that's just, kind of to show
he was relating to
what the Jedi did. It's like it's not a great practice. You're essentially kidnapping these kids and then like cultifying them. And I think it's just to say, like, I also didn't know my family. I remember this, but like, that's the only connection I have to them. But it's like I got a new family, and he's saying, like, that Bail Organa, the Organas, that's your new family. And like, I think it's easily taken as like, yeah, but I doubt that anything ever comes of that.
How about you, Liam? I think you're probably right, by the way. I had to bring it up.
Of course.
It makes me wonder, correct me if I'm wrong, did we hear his brother's name in this episode?
No.
Well, what if his brother's name is Ben Kenobi, and it adds in another little layer of him paying tribute to him by taking on that name? I think that could be interesting. And especially too, because as far as we know, the Jedi, when they become Jedi, like, the only people that have records of their family are they themselves and maybe people within the Jedi Council. Like, it's not known to the general public of, oh, you're Obi-Wan Kenobi and here's your entire family lineage. Like, Vader's family lineage is kept super secret from everyone in the galaxy. So I think that could be a nice little fun layer to further explore that. But I wouldn't expect to see Kenobi's long lost brother in the flesh anytime soon.
I would actually hate that.
To see him in the flesh?
I think I would, if they just all of a sudden were like, hey, by the way, this dude came and saved the day, and then they were like, oh, he's Obi-Wan Kenobi's brother. I would despise that moment.
Rey, you're not a Palpatine. You're a Kenobi. You're Obi-Wan's niece.
Oh. We don't need to go there. We don't need to go
Somehow there. Kenobi's brother returned.
I do want to say I'm not stoked with the Grand Inquisitor thing. I don't care if he has 2 stomachs. Like, we shouldn't have to be like Wookiee leaking this on furiously. Like, how can this guy survive? Like, we shouldn't be having to do these mental gymnastics. I think it's an incredibly weird decision. Unless it pays off in the end, I'm waiting to see. Like, I'm very much waiting to see how they go with this, because in my head right now, it's just this is an unnecessary decision. Like, if you want to take him out of the game, I feel like there's other ways to do that, rather than stabbing him and like making us think that he's dead when we all know he's not dead, and then coming out publicly and saying, by the way, he's not dead, canon is law, just wait. I mean, I feel like there's better ways to build hype than that. So I'm very much waiting for a solid plot reason as to why they made that decision in the writer's room, and I hope that it's a good one, because that is one of the things that is not sitting right with me thus far.
My biggest thing that I think it potentially could be would be that, like, but I guess like if there's already things saying that like the Grand Inquisitor's race has two stomachs, like that's, I was thinking maybe he's not of a race and he's just part of a massive clone experiment, and that's why he didn't matter, is because there's just more they can plop in and out. Maybe it could be related to Omega, maybe it could be related to Snoke, I don't know, but just kind of like that was part of their whole creation process.
Like,
but who the heck knows?
The Winter Soldier being, I'm not the only Winter Soldier, I'm not the only Grand Inquisitor. It's big.
Yeah,
they're all in tanks or whatever.
yeah, exactly.
I would
Something,
hate that.
something of the sort.
I would hate that.
Why don't
if
we
I'm gonna
get-
be honest?
Let's get back to things we don't hate.
Yes.
We got Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi conversing, battling with their lightsabers. Liam, what'd you think of all this?
So, okay, in the moment, I was a little let down by the lightsaber duel because I was living in the moment. I was like, here is the lightsaber duel that they've built up for us. And then you realize they built up that they're going to fight multiple times. And that clash, we've seen the concept art too. This was not the fight that they're building up. This is not the finale fight. This was a little tease, the same way. It's a terrible comparison, but Godzilla versus Kong, right? In that movie, the first time they scrapped, they both weren't at the height of their powers. The actual third act fight was peak Godzilla, peak Kong. So I think we're going to get peak Kenobi versus peak Vader at some point in this series. Looking at this as an individual fight was a little let down. Looking at it as, you know, the end of the first half of this series, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it'll make a lot more sense in context because this is not a binge show. We watch it week to week. I think when someone does go back and watches these episodes in one sitting, 1 through 6, it's going to feel very appreciated because it's going to emphasize that Kenobi needs to build himself back up. And it's funny because when we meet him in episode 4, he's not exactly guns blazing. He's still holding stuff back, but he has his mental confidence. And his mental confidence is a reflection of his physical confidence. And the fact that he's lacking his physical confidence right now, I think goes to show when he gets it back, it's going to be so special. And so this being the midway point of Vader kind of toying with him, a lot of callbacks too to when Luke was hammering away with the green lightsaber in Return of the Jedi on Darth Vader. Vader pulled that same move in this fight, which I thought was so awesome. A great callback there. And then also
you pointed that out.
The camera work too of the Revenge of the Sith, the fire and everything, Kenobi crawling and everything, and also when Vader first ignites his lightsaber, same exact angle as when Kenobi's waiting for him in Revenge of the Sith, but now roles are reversed. There's a lot to break down in this fight, a lot of great nuances, and you can tell it was choreographed by people who care, which is so refreshing coming off of sequel lightsaber duels that really didn't mean anything. They were just, you know, two guys fighting, not a lot of, you know, pizzazz behind it. When Luke and Kylo fight, their blades don't even clash. I know it has to make sense because he's a hologram, but still, you know, I felt like the sequel trilogy was lacking those meaningful lightsaber duels. This one immediately was just riddled with emotion and callbacks and payoffs and setups for what we're eventually going to get. I thought overall it was great, even though it did kind of let me down in the moment.
Here's a question for you guys. Are Star Wars lightsaber battles ever going to be as good as the prequels?
Well,
because those are some lightsaber battles right there.
That's the thing, because I often used to criticize the prequels for just doing kind of like flippy nonsense, but I miss it. Like
it's cool looking back on it.
I'm a big pro wrestling fan, and like as much as I love the technical mat wrestling, I like Will Ospreay and Ricochet matches. I like the springboards, the top rope maneuvers. I want to see these guys do crazy, you know, gymnastics and crazy parkour stuff. So hopefully we get that by the end, but at the same time, I don't want to see Vader flipping around. I think that would look a little ridiculous.
Yeah, but we could still see him like hammering away, and Obi's like
I agree with everything you guys are saying. My only issue with the prequel lightsaber battles, I feel like there are so many times that I almost feel like, why are you swinging it where you're like, what is the purpose of what you're doing? No one's attempting to deal a blow. There was like, there's almost times in like the time when Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting Dooku, where Anakin's lightsaber would be able to just go poof, and like just right on Dooku's neck, and then he kind of pulls it back down. And I almost felt like they just were doing cool things for the sake of cool things as opposed to like attack moves.
All right. I'm not trying to show like how nerdy I am or anything, but there's actually a lot of history on lightsaber techniques in the Star Wars universe. So I feel like there's probably some precedent there for that if you like looked hard enough.
They're again, the each individual tech that all of them have, and the techniques that those are dove in deep into, I can't speak right now, that are explored a lot more in the animated series as well. I do love that lore. I just felt like they should have been better at it. Like it was like a really cool, but there was some aspects where it's like they should have been better at the things they do, or more distinct. I don't know. There's aspects of the prequel stuff I didn't like. All my favorite lightsaber battles are in animation, and that's because obviously you can do way cooler things in animation than you can in live action, so it's not really comparable. But this one, this Vader and Obi-Wan one, I agree with a lot of what you were saying, Liam. I don't think it was meant to be the action battle. This was the emotion battle, and you got so much of that with the camera stuff, and that was my favorite one, where as opposed to Obi-Wan being above Anakin as he burns, Vader is above Obi-Wan as he's in the fire. And it was such a cool cinematic parallel. And I think this one was, and it was fresh off of Vader walking around town, just snapping necks for fun. And it was really to show us the darkness of Darth Vader and how broken Obi-Wan is and what it is to come back from. And it's exactly like you mentioned with, it'll be that much better when he comes back from it and he regains his powers, because a Jedi power isn't like the same superpowers type of stuff that we're used to in Marvel or DC. This isn't, I guess it almost is similar to Peter Parker's existential crisis in Spider-Man 2, whereas the abilities simply are not there without his self-belief, without his confidence, without his lack of fear. He doesn't have that ability to tap into the light side and have his true abilities. So until he gets a handle on his mental health and his confidence, he doesn't have access to that tap. I think he's cut off, exactly. And I think that's a super interesting concept with Jedi, and I'm really, really excited to see him roll back into it.
Yeah, and another thing, like you mentioned earlier on in the episode, that when he's describing the Force, he says it's like a light turning on. And then later on in that battle, there's a point where he like runs away several times, right? There's a point where he runs away and he's like just in the dark and he hears Vader. And so he ignites his lightsaber and he's like using it to like look around. And then all of a sudden you see like Vader come out of the dark. And it's because the light is so like bright around him, it's like blinding him. He can't see where Vader is. And I thought that was a really cool juxtaposition right there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And two, that was another technique that I thought was fun, was the fact that the lightsaber, also a flashlight, like helping him navigate around too. And it was also cool to see Obi-Wan ignite his lightsaber again. One of the best hilts in the game, easily.
Just classic, really.
Mm-hmm.
But for the end of this series, all I want is to see Obi-Wan go and do this one again with his that he always doesn't the prequel trilogy. And he just rips out so many times in Revenge of the Sith his little his lightsaber pose, and I hope we get that before the end when his confidence is back. Like you could see when he ignited this lightsaber, he was almost scared too. I can't wait to see him be ready to rip it in full tilt by episode 6. I hope that's something we're getting.
Completely
now,
agree.
Liam, we've talked about some people we hope to see in this series. We think the most likely outcome in terms of trying to ditch the word cameos, because we don't even want cameos. We want actual people in the story that make sense to the story. And if it doesn't make sense, we don't want them there.
We want inclusions.
And so, different inclusions we've talked about, the one that we think makes the most sense is Qui-Gon Jinn from as a Force ghost, him showing up, finally talking to Obi-Wan as Obi-Wan's been asking, thinking that's probably the more likely. Are both
at this point, if they don't do that, it's going to be like annoying.
Yeah. And we know that Liam Neeson's going to be returning to voice some Qui-Gon Jinn in some future animated stuff as well. And something that we're both hoping for as big fans of Jedi Fallen Order is some Cal Kestis. But we've also thrown out some other ones as well. We're curious, what are you potentially hoping to see in this show in terms of inclusions from outside the Star Wars universe? And what do you think is maybe some likely ones that you think it could be building towards?
But I think the two you mentioned are more likely than not. I wouldn't necessarily bet on either because Liam Neeson gave a really strong alibi about him saying, "Oh, I'd be happy to come back, but only if it's a movie." And everyone just kind of believed him. And now the first like 3 episodes, I'm pretty sure Obi-Wan has name dropped Qui-Gon Jinn in every single one. So I could see this being kind of a mirror of what went down in The Dark Knight Rises, where when Bruce Wayne is stuck in the Lazarus pit, all desperate and desolate, Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul comes to him in a vision and, is just talking to him and giving him mentorship. I think that would be a really neat kind of like parallel to something that happened earlier in Liam Neeson's career. Obviously, that was a movie, so it went along with his rules and regulations, but yeah, I would be pretty surprised if Qui-Gon Jinn doesn't show up. I think that was him just kind of skirting around the question a little bit. As for Cal Kestis, I will say the fact that the next Jedi Fallen Order game takes place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith and the timeline lines up exactly with where Obi-Wan is taking place, it feels too coincidental to not be like they're setting something up. But I think that one maybe is a little more unlikely just because I think they're only going to do one if they do any of these inclusions, like you said. And I think Qui-Gon is more likely, but at the same time, I want to see this character in live action. The actor who voiced him, Cameron Moynihan, I believe, shout out Gotham. He was a great Mr. J in that, or Jerome, whatever he was known as. His hair is looking very similar to Cal Kestis's hair in the video game. So there's a lot of stars that are kind of aligning right now for that to happen. Other than those two, I'd love to see Ahsoka. We know that she's around in this time, probably a hermit out somewhere. I'd love to see, like, I don't need to see Yoda, but everyone keeps putting out those memes of like Obi-Wan running for his life and Yoda's just blazing it up on Dagobah, just like chilling by the swamp and everything. And I'm like, I am curious to see like what Yoda's up to, but I don't think it would be right for a character to go visit him because he is so isolated from everyone else. It would almost have to be like a isolated scene per se. So yeah. I'm going to go Ahsoka just because of the fact that her show is coming up next year, and to refamiliarize audiences with that character, especially during this time period, I think would be really neat.
It would be interesting though, because there's a point in Rebels where Ahsoka and Vader come face to face. And it's a really poignant moment. And it's like where she realizes like, oh shit, my master is definitely evil. So it'd be interesting to see, to like know where that happens in the timeline, to see if a cameo would be possible, because I'm not 100% sure of that off the top of my head.
What I will say to add another layer onto that is we know that Hayden Christensen is going to be in the Ahsoka show, and we expect that to be flashbacks because the Ahsoka show is taking place in that Mandalorian time frame. Me and Matt have said this on the Direct podcast. We don't just want flashbacks in Obi-Wan. We want a flashback episode. We want a full episode of these last remaining 3 to be focused on some Clone Wars era stuff. And I think that's where Ahsoka would fit in very nicely. If we have, Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor in their Clone Wars armor together, it would only make sense for Ahsoka to be by their side as well, considering they're all, pals during that time frame. I think that's where she would fit in. So that's
we've already seen a clone trooper.
We have,
homeless.
They've planted the seed, and I don't know if you're gonna get Tamara Morrison on set for just that one little cameo. He's an actor that clearly is all in on Star Wars right now. So that'll be my official prediction. Flashback episode with Hayden, Ewan, and Rosario Dawson all in their Clone Wars glory.
Dude, honestly, you might have ruined the show for me. Like, because now I'm gonna be so bummed if that doesn't happen, because that sounds so good. Wow.
You know, one of the drawbacks to content heavy times like this where we're recording so often is I don't get to listen to all the podcasts I like listening to as often. I still got my automatic downloads on for Phase Zero, the direct podcast, and the Ringerverse, but it's usually like once every couple of weeks I get to like sit down and I'll just like listen to like all three in a row, kind of, when I got some time. But I didn't catch you guys saying that, and I'm happy that you brought it up, because wow, do I love that idea. Like, if we get a flashback episode, I would watch that 30 times. Like, I would just watch it and watch it and watch it. I would love to see these guys back in their young roles as part of the Clone Wars. I think that would
just
be
give me
so
Rex.
cool.
That's all I will be. Like, if I get a live action Rex, I don't know if I'll ever watch another Star Wars project again, because I'll be able to die happy. That's all I want.
Like Garrett and I are huge Rebels fans, and so people who haven't watched Rebels, go watch Rebels. But if you haven't watched any, go watch the last 2 episodes of season 2. They go out of timeline order a bit anyways, so you'd be a bit confused to watch parts of them anyways, and you don't lose a lot. But they are those last 2 episodes truly have some of my all-time favorite moments in all of Star Wars, between Ahsoka and Vader, live action or animated. It is my favorite Star Wars content that exists.
Yeah,
pretty special.
And it's just so awesome that we're now seeing Ahsoka in live action. We're now seeing Vader back in live action. It's truly incredible stuff.
I also didn't know that we were getting Hayden Christensen in the Ahsoka show until you just said that, to be honest with you.
That's official. That's like Variety or THR official. That's like
that makes me very happy.
Heck yes. As my dog Obi-Wan heard we were talking about him, that's my dog's name, is Obi-Wan. And he heard us talking about him, and so he ran over on my lap. But sounds like somebody's at the door now or something. But that'll do it for our Obi-Wan conversation today. We will be back talking episode 4 of Obi-Wan live on Twitch Wednesday evening with Jamie Jirac from comicbook.com. And then Thursday morning, we're going to be back live on Twitch with Mo from Streamer talking the very first episode of Ms. Marvel. Liam, thanks so much for joining us today, man. This was nice to link back up with you. It's been too long.
Yeah, it's been a minute, and thank you guys for having me. I love this show. I love what you guys are building, and I love seeing the Agents of Fandom community grow every single day. And I'm happy to be a part of it too. So yeah, thank you again for thinking of me.
That means a lot.
Absolutely. And yeah, that means a lot, and we definitely love to have you back on in the future. Hopefully for a draft. We've been like cooking up some ideas, but we've never really had time to get them on. So
live draft idea. I thought of one during this episode.
Oh boy.
And it was because of you, Liam. So It feels like it would only be right to have you on for this. A lightsaber hilt draft.
Oh, I kind of dig it. I feel like the color of the blade also has a big impact too.
Okay, I'm down.
And I already have my 101. I'm not going to reveal it, but
I have my 101 too. So
I do
cool.
too.
Wow. Love that. Wow. All right.
I love it. I absolutely love it. But yeah, thank you again for having us on. We know co-host of the Direct podcast, but tell our viewers a little bit about the pod if they haven't listened to it, and where else they can find you.
Yeah, so it's the Direct podcast. We drop episodes for the foreseeable future every Wednesday around noon Eastern. We like to do episodes the same day as content drops. So as long as Disney Plus is commanding Wednesdays, so are we. We have a lot of fun. We divide the episodes into 3 portions. We do news at the top, we do a review in the middle, and then we do a nice little feature segment at the end, whether that be a list, a draft, fan cast, whatever. But for now, because Ms. Marvel and Obi-Wan are airing simultaneously, the feature is taking a little bit of a break to ensure that we can get both reviews in the same episode. But other than that, yeah, make sure you subscribe on iTunes, on Spotify, Spreaker, wherever you get your podcasts. Wherever you listen to Agents of Fandom, you can find the Direct podcast, and you can find me on socials at Liam T. Crowley, just my name with the middle initial T in the middle. And yeah, again, thank you guys for having me on. Thank you for giving me the chance to plug my stuff. I appreciate it.
Heck yes, of course. we love our friends at Direct, and that's one of the reasons why we chose Tuesdays and Thursdays as our release days. Is the Direct and Phase Zero. You guys got Wednesdays locked down, and so we got the day later one so that people can keep enjoying all of their fandom content throughout the week. Thank you so much for listening to the Agents of Fandom again today. On behalf of myself, on behalf of Liam, on behalf of Garrett, and our amazing producer Ruben, that will do it for today's episode. Peace.
Peace.